The night descended like a thick, black blanket, with not a single ray of light piercing through. I woke up from a restless sleep, sweat rolling down my forehead despite the room being freezing cold. The clock on the desk showed exactly 3 a.m., the moment when the world seemed to hold its breath, with no sound of wind howling through the cracks in the door, no chirping of insects in the bushes, only the rapid beat of my heart echoing in my chest like a drum urging me forward. I didn't know what had pulled me from the hazy dream, but deep within my soul, I heard a gentle yet powerful whisper, "Pray." I'm not someone who often talks to God. My life had been a constant whirl of long workdays, bills piling up on the desk like silent accusations, and nameless worries clinging to me like shadows. I grew up in a small house on the outskirts, where my father, a rugged man with calloused hands, would always say that life was a fierce battle and only the strong survive. Don't expect anyone to help you, Nam, he used to say, his voice as gravelly as stone, his stern eyes looking at me through the cigarette smoke. Everything depends on you. My mother, on the other hand, was a gentle woman, often sitting by the window with an old Bible in hand, whispering prayers that I once thought meaningless. "The Lord is our protector and defender in all circumstances," she would say, her eyes lighting up with a faith I couldn't understand. "When you put your trust in Him, your soul will find peace." But I didn't believe. I believed in the power of my own hands, thinking that if I tried hard enough, I could control everything, until I realized I had been terribly wrong. Everything started to fall apart on a rainy afternoon, when the sky was so gray it seemed like it wanted to swallow the whole world. I got a call from my boss. "The company has gone bankrupt, Nam. We can't keep you anymore." His voice was dry, emotionless, as if he were just announcing the weather. I stood motionless in the empty office, holding the phone that had gone dead, feeling as though the ground beneath my feet had cracked open into a bottomless abyss. That job, where I had poured sweat and tears for 5 years, vanished in the blink of an eye. I went home, my shoes soaked from the rain, clutching the termination letter like a death sentence. In the days that followed, I lived in fear and confusion. Bills stacked up on the kitchen table, the fridge was empty except for a few old eggs, and every night, I lay awake, hearing the rain tapping on the roof like hammer strikes against my mind. What did I do wrong? I asked myself, the voice in my head repeating like a broken record. Why is life so cruel to me? I tried to get up, find a new job, work overtime at odd jobs, from delivering packages in the cold rain to washing dishes in a small roadside diner. But every door seemed to slam shut in my face. Former close friends drifted away, promises of help were nothing but fleeting winds, and I began to feel like a shadow, lost in the rush of life. I was exhausted, both physically and mentally. Every morning I looked in the mirror and saw a failure, dark circles under my eyes, a hollow face, and an empty soul. I once thought I was strong, believed I could overcome anything, but now, all I had left was despair. In that despair, I remembered my mother's words, "When you're tired, come to the Lord. He will give you rest." She often referred to Matthew 11 verse 28, a verse I had heard vaguely when I was a child, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." At that time, I had shrugged it off, thinking it was just empty comfort for the weak. I didn't want to be weak. But that night, when I woke at 3 a.m., I had no other choice. I had tried everything to save myself, working until exhaustion, seeking new opportunities, even escaping into restless, nightmare-filled sleep. Nothing worked. So, I decided to try once, just once, to see if he was really there. I sat up, my bare feet touching the cold wooden floor, and trembled as I walked to the corner of the room where I kept my mother's old Bible, a tattered leather-bound book I had never opened since she passed away 3 years ago. I knelt beside the old bed, clasping my hands so tightly that my knuckles turned white. "Lord," I whispered, my voice trembling with doubt and fear, "I don't know if you can hear me, but if you are there, please help me. I am tired. I am afraid. I need peace." It wasn't a perfect prayer. It wasn't flowery or memorized, just clumsy words pouring out from a broken heart. I didn't expect anything to happen, no thunderclaps, no blinding light from above. But then, like a cool breeze passing over a dry field, I felt a warm presence spread through my chest. Not the warmth of blankets, but the deep peace, as if someone were holding my soul and whispering, "I am here. Do not be afraid." I looked up, tears streaming down my face without realizing I was crying. In that moment, I knew he was truly present. I continued praying from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., not to ask for a new job or money, but just to feel his presence once more. I told him about my fears, fear of failure, fear of not being able to care for my family, fear that tomorrow would just be another dark day. I prayed for his protection over my aging parents back home, for my sister, Lynn, who was struggling in the city, and for myself, a lost soul caught in the storm of life. My prayer wasn't smooth, sometimes it was interrupted by choking sobs, but I felt each burden in my heart being lifted, as if I was placing them at his feet. When the first light of dawn peeked through the window, I stood up, my legs no longer trembling. In my heart, a small flame had been lit, the flame of hope. I wiped away my tears, looking at the flickering light of the candle I had just lit on the table, and told myself, "If you heard me tonight, maybe you will continue to listen." From that night on, I began a new habit, waking up from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. to pray. At first, I did it out of desperation, but gradually, it became an essential part of my life. I discovered that during that time, when the whole world was asleep, I could feel his presence the most. It was a sacred hour, when my soul was separated from the noise of life, and I could talk to him as if he were my closest friend. I placed the small candle on the wooden table in the corner of the room, next to my mother's Bible. Every morning, I lit the candle, its flickering flame like a small lighthouse in the dark night sea. I prayed with sincerity, "Lord, please protect me, my family, and my future. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I trust that you are in control of everything." And every time I spoke those words, I felt an invisible strength surround me, like a sturdy fortress protecting me from the cold winds of fear. I began to understand that prayer wasn't just words, it was a shield, a barrier against the enemy's attacks, and the doorway to peace I had never known before. The more I prayed, the more deeply I felt his presence. One night, as the candle burned low, I opened my mother's Bible and read Matthew 11 verse 28 again. Those words no longer seemed distant, they felt like an invitation meant just for me, a weary soul burdened by life. I whispered, "Lord, I come to you now. I lay all my burdens at your feet." And in the silence of the night, I felt my soul lighten, like a ship lost at sea finally finding safe harbor. Prayer didn't just relieve my anxiety, it brought strength and protection I never thought I could receive. In the days that followed, I continued praying every morning, and I began to realize that my prayer time from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. was not just a routine, it was a sacred fortress, where I could shelter myself from life's storms. I asked him to protect me from invisible dangers, negative thoughts, doubts gnawing at my soul, and even the evil forces I had once not believed in. One night, as I prayed, an old memory flooded back, like waves crashing on the shore. I remembered the stories my mother had told about our family, the generational curses she believed had haunted us for years. She said that my great-grandfather, a hot-tempered man, had left behind a curse after a quarrel with a neighbor, and that curse had become an invisible shadow, bringing hardship and misfortune to our descendants. I had once mocked those stories, thinking they were just old superstitions. But that night, as I knelt by the candlelight, I felt a burden on my shoulders, as though someone were placing an invisible stone on my back. I took a deep breath, my trembling hands resting on the Bible. The light from the flickering candle illuminated the yellowed pages, as if shining light into the hidden corners of my soul. Jesus, I said, my voice more resolute than ever, by your power, I declare freedom from all generational curses that have hindered my life. I no longer want to carry the bitterness or pain of the past. I want to become a new creation in you. As I spoke those words, I felt an invisible chain shatter into pieces, falling to the floor with an imagined echo. A cool breeze seemed to sweep through the room, even though the windows were shut. Tears fell from my eyes, not from sorrow, but from the joy of being set free. I felt light, like a bird just escaping a cage, soaring into the sky of freedom. But that freedom didn't come easily. I realized that to truly walk as a new creation, I had to face the wounds in my heart, the wounds I had buried beneath layers of pride and false confidence. I had blamed myself for losing my job, for not being good enough, not strong enough to keep everything in my hands. I had held on to resentment toward the colleagues who abandoned me when the company collapsed, leaving me alone in the wreckage. On the long nights of insomnia, I imagined them laughing and chatting while I struggled with every penny. That resentment felt like a thorn deeply embedded in my palm, painful every time I thought of it, but I didn't know how to pull it out. That night, as I knelt by the candlelight, I prayed, Lord, I forgive them. I forgive myself. Please help me let go. Those words didn't come easily, they felt like a stone stuck in my throat, forcing me to use all my strength to push them out. But as I spoke, I felt a gentle breeze sweep through my soul, carrying away all the remaining burdens. Forgiveness wasn't forgetting, I still remembered the hard times, but it was liberation, opening the door for new light to enter my heart. I realized that prayer not only brought peace, it also brought the strength to face myself, to heal the broken pieces of my soul. The following mornings, I continued praying from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. and each time, I felt more deeply connected to God. I no longer just prayed for protection for myself, but for my family, my aging parents at home, their legs shaking with each step, my sister Lynn, who was working in the big city, always calling home with a tired voice. I asked him to guide me, not only to overcome difficulties but also to find meaning in life. And he answered, not with grand miracles, but with small, subtle signs, like the dewdrops glistening on the leaves after the rain. One morning, just after I finished praying, the phone rang. It was Min, an old friend I hadn't seen in a while. Nam, I heard about a job at a small company nearby, Min said, his voice excited over the line. The pay isn't great, but it's stable. I think you'd be a good fit. Want to give it a try? I hesitated, not daring to hope too much. Over the past few months, I had applied to dozens of places, only to receive cold rejections. But this time, I felt different. I whispered in my heart, Lord, if this is your will, please make a way. A week later, I got a call from the company. They wanted me to start immediately. It wasn't the dream job, just a small office position with enough pay to get by, but to me, it was a new beginning, a small light in the dark days. I knew it wasn't just luck, it was his answer. The new job brought me a more stable rhythm of life, though it was only a small ray of light amid dark days. I started working in a small office tucked away in a quiet alley, where the noise of the city seemed to never reach. Each day, I sat at my desk, sorting documents, entering data, and answering brief phone calls. The pay wasn't high, but it was enough to cover my rent, buy food, and send a little money back to my parents in the countryside. I no longer had to rush around delivering packages in the rain or wash dishes until my hands were numb. But life didn't stop challenging me, and I soon realized that the new job was only a starting point, not the end. One evening, just after returning from my shift, the phone rang. It was Lynn, my sister. Her voice choked through the line. "Oh no, I just lost my job. They laid me off because the company is downsizing. I don't know what to do." I could hear her sobbing, and my heart tightened. Lynn had always been the strong one in the family, always trying not to worry our parents, but this time, I could sense the desperation in her every word. "I feel useless," Lynn whispered, and I knew that feeling. I had been there, standing at the edge of failure and self-blame. "Don't say that," I replied, trying to keep my voice calm even though my heart was in turmoil. "Come home tomorrow. We'll get through this together." After hanging up, I sat silently on the old chair in my room, looking at the candle still resting on the table next to the Bible. I asked myself, "Lord, why Lynn? Why must our family face another blow?" But then I remembered the mornings of prayer, the peace He had given me during the darkest days. I whispered, "Please help my sister, as you helped me." That night, I knelt down at 3 a.m., lit the candle, and prayed, "Lord, please protect Lynn. Please give her strength and hope. I believe you will not forsake us." The next morning, Lynn arrived, pulling a small suitcase, her eyes red from crying. She looked more worn out than I expected. Her hair was a mess, her shoulders slumped as if carrying the weight of the world, and her face pale from lack of sleep. I led her into my small room, where the candle and Bible still rested quietly on the table. "Sit here," I said, placing my hand on her shoulder. "We'll pray together." Lynn looked at me, her eyes full of doubt. "I don't know how to pray, oh no. I'm not good at this." "Can you do it by yourself? You don't need to be good at it," I smiled, holding her hand tightly. "Just say what you feel. I'll help you." We knelt down together in that small room, at 3 a.m. the next morning. I began, "Lord, please protect my sister, please give her the strength to overcome. Forgive her doubts, and show her your love." I paused and gestured for Lynn to continue. She hesitated, then whispered, "Lord, I don't know who you are, but if you're listening, please help me. I'm so tired. I don't want to make our parents sad anymore." Lynn's voice trembled, but I felt the sincerity in every word she spoke. As we prayed, I could hear Lynn's sobs slowly subside. She looked up, her eyes still wet but brighter. I feel lighter now," Lynn whispered, surprised. "It's like someone is hugging me." I smiled, knowing that it was Him, our protector and defender in all circumstances. "That's the Lord," I said. "He's always here, whether you see Him or not." From that moment, Lynn stayed with me, and we began praying together every morning from 3 to 5 a.m. At first, Lynn was awkward, often silent, letting me lead, but gradually, she started speaking her own prayers, simple, sincere, and full of hope. I realized that God was not only a protector, He was full of mercy and forgiveness. I used to think that my mistakes, the arrogance of believing I could handle everything myself, the selfishness of not caring enough for my family, the times I lost my temper with my parents over trivial matters, were stains that couldn't be erased. But through prayer, I felt His grace, a love that didn't hold on to anger forever. One morning, as Lynn and I knelt by the candlelight, I opened the Bible and read aloud, "He does not deal with us according to our sins, nor repay us according to our iniquities." Psalm 103 verse 10. Those words shone like light in my soul, and I turned to Lynn. "Do you see? He forgives us, no matter how wrong we may have been. Lynn nodded, her eyes lighting up. So I don't have to be afraid anymore, right, On? I held her hand. That's right. He is our source of hope. Our lives began to change, not because all the difficulties disappeared, but because we learned to view them through the lens of faith. I still worked at the small office, Lynn still searched for a new job, but we no longer felt like failures. Those challenges didn't just strengthen our faith, they helped us grow closer in our relationship with God. Every time we faced a difficulty, I reminded myself, this is a lesson. God is teaching me something. One morning, as we knelt by the candlelight, I said to Lynn, we need to thank God, no matter what life brings. Lynn looked at me, surprised. Thank God for what, On? We have nothing, you're working hard, and I'm unemployed. I smiled, we have each other. We have our health. We have today. Those are blessings we often overlook. Lynn nodded, still with some doubt, and we began to pray, Lord, thank you for everything good in our lives, for this home, for our family, for the simple meals. Please continue to protect and bless us. That gratitude changed the way we viewed life. Even though there were still hard days, unpaid bills, meals with only rice and salt, we no longer felt hopeless. A week later, a miracle happened. I received a letter from the bank. The old debt I had taken out after losing my job was suddenly reduced by half, thanks to an unexpected government relief policy. I held the letter, my hands trembling, and turned to Lynn, see. He always provides for us. Lynn smiled, the first time I had seen her smile since she lost her job. Maybe you're right, she said. Maybe he really is with us. From then on, we didn't just pray for requests, we prayed to give thanks, to hold on to the belief that he was always there, even in the stormiest days. The more we prayed, the more I realized that the strength of faith can bring both healing and deliverance. One evening, my father called from the countryside, his voice weak over the phone, Nam, I'm not feeling well. The doctor says I have severe pneumonia. I felt my heart tighten. My father, the strong man who had taught me to be resilient, was now just a frail shadow. Lynn and I rushed back to the countryside, bringing with us the Bible and the small candle, our companions through the darkest days. When we arrived, I saw my father lying on the bed, struggling to breathe, his eyes clouded with exhaustion. My mother sat beside him, holding his hand, her lips silently praying, just as she had done for years. That night, I knelt by my father's bed at 3 a.m., lit the candle, and prayed, Lord, please heal my father. Please bring him strength and peace. I believe you can do anything. Lynn knelt beside me, holding my hand tightly, and we prayed for 2 hours, until the first light of the new day peeked through the window. I kept repeating, Lord, I believe in you. Please act. When we stood up, I looked at my father. He was still sleeping, but his breathing seemed a little more even. The next morning, my father woke up, his eyes brighter, his breath no longer labored. My mother hugged me, tears rolling down her cheeks. Son, what did you and Lynn do that made him get better? I smiled. We prayed, Mom. He listened. The doctor came for a checkup at noon, surprised. I don't understand. He's recovering faster than I expected. This is a rare case. I looked at Lynn, then at my mother, and we all knew, it was a miracle from him. From that day on, I realized that praying with unwavering faith not only brings peace, it can also heal both the body and the soul. I began to share my story with those around me, neighbors, colleagues, even strangers I met on the street. If you're struggling, I said, try praying at 3 a.m. He will listen. Some people laughed, but many listened, and some even began to kneel with me during those quiet mornings. My father's healing was not only a miracle for my family, it was a flame that lit my faith brighter than ever. When we returned to the city, I decided to do something I had never thought of before: consecrate my small home to Jesus. One evening, Lynn and I stood in the living room, holding the Bible and the nearly burned down candle. I said aloud, "Jesus, I consecrate this home to you. Please be present in every corner, every item, and protect us from all evil." Lynn continued, "Holy Spirit, bless us and bring your love here." As we prayed, I felt an unusual peace fill the room, as if every dark corner had been illuminated by divine light. That night, I had a strange dream I could never forget. I saw a shadow standing outside the door, banging loudly as if trying to break in, but every time it touched the doorframe, a white light pushed it back. I woke up at 3 a.m., my heart racing, but not from fear. I felt safe. I knelt down, lit the candle, and prayed, "Jesus, thank you for protecting us. Please continue to watch over this home." From then on, I never heard strange noises in the night, and I no longer felt cold winds blowing through. My small home had become a sacred space, a safe haven amid life's storms. The peace in my small home wasn't just a feeling, it was a living power, like a fire burning quietly in the dark of the night, never to go out. Lynn and I continued praying every morning from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., not just to ask, to give thanks, or to seek protection, but also to understand Him more deeply, the one who had transformed our lives. My work at the small office gradually stabilized, and Lynn began receiving freelance jobs online, enough to support herself and no longer feel like a burden. But I knew our faith journey hadn't stopped. New challenges were always lurking, and I needed to prepare for them. One morning, as the candle flickered on the table, I opened the Bible and read about the sacrifice of Jesus, about the cross, His blood shed for the salvation of humanity, and His resurrection that defeated sin and death. I read aloud, "For God so loved the world, that He gave His one and only Son, that whoever believes in Him should not perish but have eternal life." John 3 verse 16. These words struck my heart like a hammer, breaking through the hard shell I had built to protect myself. I had once thought life was a battle I had to fight alone, but now I understood that someone else had fought in my place, and He had won. I turned to Lynn, who was sitting next to me, listening to me read. "Have you ever thought that we don't have to carry everything ourselves?" I asked. Lynn thought for a moment, then nodded, "Maybe so, on. But I'm still scared that if I don't try, everything will fall apart." I took her hand. Jesus took our sins and pain on the cross. His resurrection is the strength for us to live a new life. We don't have to be afraid anymore. Lynn smiled, and I felt that she was beginning to understand, not just with her mind, but with her heart. But this understanding wasn't just words, it was tested right after. One day, my boss called me into his office and made a strange proposal. "Nam," he said, in his deep voice, "we have a big client. If you're willing to fix some numbers in the report, the company will make a large profit, and you'll get a huge bonus." I stood still, my head spinning. The bonus could help me pay off my debts, send more money to my parents, and give Lynn a better life. But I knew it was wrong, it was fraud, it was sin. I looked at my boss, trying to keep my voice calm. "I need some time to think about it." That night, I knelt at 3 a.m., my hands trembling as I placed them on the Bible. "Lord," I prayed, "I don't want to live in sin. I want to live in the victory you gave through your resurrection. Please give me the strength to resist this temptation." I felt sweat running down my forehead, my heart pounding as if it would explode. But then, like a cool breeze, I heard a whisper in my heart, "I have defeated the power of sin. You can live in freedom." As the candle burned low, I stood up, feeling relieved. The next morning, I walked into the office and told my boss, "I can't do it. I'm sorry." He frowned, but didn't insist. I left the office with empty hands, but my soul was filled with peace. Resisting temptation wasn't just a small victory, it was proof that I was living a new life, no longer bound by greed or fear. I told Lynn this story, and she looked at me with admiration. "Oh Nam, I didn't know you were so strong." I smiled. "I'm not strong. He is strong, and he is in me." From then on, I cherished the strength that comes from the sacrifice and resurrection of Jesus. I prayed every morning for him to guide me to live rightly, so that I could not only overcome sin but also live for him, a life that brings hope and light. But life isn't only about external victories. Sometimes, it's a journey of healing deep wounds within the heart. One night, as I knelt by the candle, a painful memory flooded back, the memory of the day my mother passed away. She had died after a sudden illness, leaving me with the regret of not spending more time with her. I remembered the time she called me to come home, her weak voice on the phone, "Nam, come visit me, son. I miss you." But I was always busy with work, busy with my own worries. When she passed, I stood by her coffin, tears falling, but I couldn't say anything. I blamed myself, thinking that if I had been there more, maybe she wouldn't have passed alone. That night, I prayed, "Jesus, please come into the places of hurt in my heart. Please shine light into the dark places and heal this pain." I cried, tears falling to the wooden floor, but I kept praying, "I invite you into this memory. Please forgive me for not cherishing my mother while I still could." As I spoke those words, I felt a warm embrace surround me, as if he was standing there, holding me. I heard a whisper in my heart, "You are forgiven. Let me heal you." I opened my eyes, looked at the candle still burning brightly, and for the first time since my mother passed, I felt a sense of relief, not because the pain was gone, but because I knew I no longer had to carry it alone. From then on, I began to face other wounds, the times I had failed, the criticisms from myself and others. I prayed, "Lord, I let go of the negative thoughts I used to believe. I'm useless, I'm not worthy. I reaffirm your power in my life." Each time I spoke these words, I felt the dark corners of my heart illuminated by his light. Healing didn't come immediately. It was a journey, but I knew I was heading in the right direction, with him leading the way. My faith was tested and strengthened through a special experience. One morning, as I knelt in prayer, I felt a strong urge, pray continuously for 7 days. I didn't know why, but I believed it was his voice. I told Lynn, "I will pray from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. for 7 consecutive days. Do you want to join me?" Lynn nodded, "I'll join you." "But for what?" I smiled, "I'm not sure, but I believe he has something for us." During those 7 days, Lynn and I knelt every morning, lit the candle, and prayed with repentance and hope. "Lord," I said, "forgive my sins, pride, selfishness, the times I doubted you. Please bless and bring peace to our family." Lynn continued, "Please help me find a job, and give our parents health." We prayed non-stop, sometimes so tired our eyes stung, but we didn't give up. By the 7th day, as the candle burned down, I felt a strange peace fill the room, as if every prayer we had made had been heard. A miracle happened shortly after. Lynn received a call from a company she had applied to months ago. "Lynn, we have a position that suits you. Can you start next week?" Lynn screamed into the phone, "Of course. Thank you." She ran to hug me, tears streaming down her face, on Nam, our 7 days of prayer. It's real. At the same time, Mom called from the countryside, "Nam, your father is much better now. He's even out in the garden working. I don't know what's happening, but I thank God." I smiled, looking at Lynn. 7 is perfection in the Bible. He has completed something for us. These miracles weren't just rewards, they were proof that faith and perseverance in prayer could change everything. Lynn and I continued praying every morning, not just for ourselves, but for those around us. I began sharing my journey with others, colleagues at the office, neighbors in the neighborhood, even strangers I met on the street. "If you're in despair," I said, "try praying at 3 a.m. He will listen." A few people laughed and called me a dreamer, but many listened, and some even came to my house in the early mornings to kneel together. Gradually, my small room became a sacred gathering place. Neighbors brought candles, old Bibles, and we prayed together, for protection, healing, and peace. An elderly woman, Mrs. Howell, said she found hope after losing her husband through these prayer sessions. A young man, Tuan, said he had quit drinking after feeling God's presence in this room. I looked at their faces, their eyes glowing with faith, and I knew that the flame of peace he lit in me wasn't just for me, it was to spread.